recording, so no profanities. Great, so let's get started. Today we are going to be looking at learning how to build an expert status. And to do so, I'll be taking you through this particular session. We do have sessions coming up throughout the week. And for example, tomorrow we're looking at business organizational structure. We will be looking on Thursday. We actually have a session that I'm hosting with Ms. Kandel Bostwick on assurance for reopening public institutions such as schools and religious institutions. So if you are looking at the safest way to reopen public institutions, it would be fantastic for you to check that out. And on Saturday, we're actually doing a session on Saturday that's all about improving sales skills. One of the key things that you have to remember on your journey to becoming an expert is to ensure that you can be brilliant in your mind, have a fantastic brain, but if you can't be able to articulate it well, if you can't get it out of your mouth, you could end up in a situation where it will be very difficult for people to understand what you really mean to the market, right? What do you bring to the table? So selling what you bring to the table is extremely important. I think all of us also sharing wants to achieve ways of implementing strategies to improve yourself and your business. Great, so why me? Why am I here with you today? I'm now 20 years into my career as well. And one of the key things that has happened is that one of the key things that has happened is that in my career, I noticed relatively early on that I was pretty good at business. I got qualified as an engineer in 1999. And so right. And when I achieved that qualification, I started working with an organization, and being about 19 years old back then, I realized that yes, I like engineering. It is a field that really allows me to get very hands-on, but then I also started to learn the business side of the organization. Because all the work I was doing, and it was in the rice milling industry, the work I was doing, how was it related to this organization actually generating a profit, actually being able to pay the bills and the like? And what happened is that I got so interested on the business side that I even started off my own business. I quit the job and I started my own business, and I was fascinated by the fact that when I was an engineer, as an engineer, you always have materials. You have 100%, and you actually have to make the best out of that 100%, which means that the result is always going to be a situation where you can't get more than you put in with engineering, right? If this is the material, this is the labor, you're going to get some outcome from that. But what fascinated me with business is that if you have 100% and you add some value, or you have 100%, you could actually sell it and get more than 100% you put in. And I thought, isn't that fascinating? I've been taught my whole life in engineering that, you have your inputs, you're going to have some inefficiency, and you're going to end up with the output, which is always less than 100%. And when I turn around and I look at the business side of things, I then recognize that I could actually take 100%. And when I sell it, I can have 120%, I can have 130, if I'm really lucky, 200, 300% out of that initial 100%. And I thought, if I had to choose in my life, what path do I want to go down? I noticed that I was good at both. I'm very good technically. I'm very good on the business side. I thought, let me become an expert on the business side, because in life, we're always looking for a return on investment. If you think about it, maybe a return on your life invested, because that's what we do. We invest our life in a specific area. Why not invest it in an area that you actually enjoy and that can also generate significant returns? And that's where my journey actually, in terms of learning how to build an expert status, started. I was successful in running distribution businesses. I was successful in construction. And what ended up happening is that with that success, many people, many other businesses started to come to me and started asking me for advice. And this was, I started off in Georgetown and then I moved to Berbice. So many organizations started to come to me. And one of the steps that I took, and I would encourage you as well, I do see that there are some business people on the call here. One of the steps that I took was to join the Chamber of Commerce, because at the Chamber of Commerce, it allows you to help a lot of organizations at the same time. And fortunately for me, and I really count that as my formative years, I was even elected to be the president of that specific chamber. And it really allowed me to further develop my leadership skills. And what also happened is that by developing my leadership skills and being more in the spotlight as well, because when you lead an organization, you start getting into that spotlight, more and more persons started to ask. And I realized as well that in order for me to be an expert, I need to be able to have value. And today's session is going to go very deeply on how to have value, because you cannot give what you do not have, right? You cannot give what you do not have. It allowed me to then pursue my MBA. And I was telling my team up to yesterday, that when I was doing my MBA, I recognized how much of these things I was doing in practice, but now I understood the principles. And because I understood the principles, if I had known these principles prior, I probably might have been able to get where I was in half the time. I was so intrigued by the knowledge I got in the MBA, and particularly entrepreneurship, that I thought, okay, great. In our country, we talk a lot about entrepreneurs and entrepreneurship and what it could do for our country, but who are the experts? Right? Who are the experts? We have a Small Business Act since 2004, but who is an expert in entrepreneurship in this country? And you'd have to look really far and wide to find one or two. And then when you look at the results, it's not always what you think, okay, well, yeah, this looks like a good path. So I pursued as well a PhD in management, specializing in entrepreneurship, because to be an expert, you actually really have to go deep in your field, as you'll notice from the presentation. And it just, it's 4 years worth of research, knowing every single thing about the subject, so that when you do need to work with people, when you do need to give them that advice, they are really certain that they're listening to an expert. And it's up to them to use the advice, adapt the advice, and then institute it, but they know that they've gotten it from someone who's gone really deep into that specific field. So this is the reason why I'm with you here today. I've also started Action Coach Guyana, and the formal launching was actually 5 years ago, 21st of May. And we've worked with hundreds of companies and really allowing them to get to a much better level faster than if they were to do it on their own. And sometimes people ask me, Vish, what is this coaching thing all about? And maybe the simplest way I can explain it is that persons like myself, our coaches, we help business owners, executives, and managers, we help them make better decisions faster. Right? Better decisions faster, because if you think about your fingers here and you think about this being like a fork in the road, and most people stay here when they have to make a decision, and they think and they think and they think and they think, and they don't make that decision. And whatever you have to do, it's either going to be a yes or a no. But staying here doesn't help. And you can see the banner behind me. The biggest risk you can take is to do nothing, right? So what we help them do is figure out which one of these paths is a better path, will give them maximum results, and then what's the fastest way they can go down that path. The nice thing about this method is that even if it's the wrong path, if you take that decision early enough and strategically enough meaning do it on a small scale, test it, figure out if it works and it doesn't, you have enough time to come back and go down the other path when somebody else is still standing here and still waiting, right? So this is exactly what we do as coaches as well. And I do know there are a lot of people out there wanting to help others and maybe not getting maybe the attention that they would like to have. But then also when they have to work with others, they're doubting themselves of if they can really make it and if they can really deliver value. If you have those doubts, this session is for you. If there's anyone else who really needs to be on here, you can invite them. We'll do a recording as well. So let's get started. Now, first thing is, what is an expert? Everyone on the call, everyone who's joining me right now, I would ask you some questions, right? And if you are on the path of becoming an expert, I need you to write down these questions. For some of you, the answer pops to your mind right away. Please write it down. For some of you, you will actually need to come back to these questions, right? Because becoming an expert means that you really have to start using your cognitive abilities, right? We're not in the agrarian age or the industrial age where big muscles and really get you to the top of the food chain. It is the knowledge age. It's the technology age. So where your brain really has to function in order to give you that life that you are seeking. So a definition of an expert is someone who has exemplary experience and knowledge in a particular field or subject through dedicated learning and practice. Right? So I'll just give you that one more time, because if you are going to call yourself an expert, this is a significant part of what will be expected from you, right? You must have exemplary experience and knowledge in a particular field or subject through dedicated learning and practice, right? So this person will have a unique ability to disseminate and organize information and to see complex patterns and relationships to the extent that this person may be the authority on fact-finding, problem-solving, and strategizing when it comes to that field. And, for example, if it's business, then it means that for business. Now, think about it. When you are an expert, people must have the confidence to be able to come to you, explain to you what their reality is, and you, based on your experience and your dedicated research and the learning and the application you've done in the past, you will be able to understand pretty quickly where they fit within the framework and what a good potential path for them is. Right? So question number one, please make a note of that. In your mind, what sets an expert apart from others? Right? And for those of you in the Zoom call right now, please make a note in the chat box. In your mind, what sets an expert apart from others? Because if you're not an expert, then you're part of the others, right? In any population, you'll find that the people who raise to the expert level are most likely single-digit percentages. 1-2% of the population actually gets to an expert level. And this, I'm talking about global expertise level. If you were to think about, let's say, technology, we've all had to resort to being able to work from home. And when you're at home, you might be the best one. You might actually be the expert when it comes to technology in your household, right? So of the 5 people in your household, you're the number one, so you're in the top 20%. However, when you go back to work and there are 100 people in the organization, and I'm sure you can think about that person's face right now if it's not yours, the person you call upon when you have technology problems, computer problems, that person is the expert in your organization, and it's one or two. However, does that mean that that person is the expert in the country when it comes to technology? Maybe, maybe not. You know, when I was in Barbados, I could have been considered an expert in business in Barbados. Did it mean that I was an expert in business in Guyana? I wouldn't know that until I actually tested. Right? So please understand that you need to start looking at what sets an expert apart from others. And I'm getting some of the feedback here. For someone who has an advanced knowledge, competence, and skill on the subject, so that is an expert. Proven results from Shareza. They don't just talk the talk, but they have walked the walk. Right? So very good, very good. So question number one. Now, the unfortunate reality, though, is that many people who are highly skilled in a specific area, they reach to a certain point in their education, and then they actually move to a performance-only practice. And what does that mean? That actually means that they are they went to school, or they studied, or they understudied someone, and then they started using that skill to actually earn a living. So they actually use that skill now to earn a living on a continuous basis, not improving the quality or the level of that skill. They just use it all the time. Now, because of that, they actually start to stagnate over time. Right? That's why many people say that, you know, if you had a degree 5 years ago, by now it's already outdated with how fast the world moves, how fast knowledge comes out, how fast things change. The key to becoming an expert is to always be improving, growing, and evolving constantly. The mindset of an expert is that there is always more to learn, experience, and reflect on. And so the members of my team, what I ask them very often is there anything else you would rather be doing? Is there anything else you would rather be doing? Please write down that question, because I ask myself that question at least once a month to make sure that, you know, I am on the right path. But that's a question you need to ask yourself. Of all the fields, all the subjects that you could have chosen, you've chosen at least one right now. Is there anything else you'd rather be doing than the thing that you've chosen today? Being great at what you do does not make you an expert, no. Being the authority in your field makes you an expert. And so please understand the difference. Being great at home with your technology doesn't make you an expert. Being an authority when you have mastered the field or a subject that people can come to you and you'll be able to guide them, direct them at that level, that's when you're actually an expert. So let's take a look at your performance. On a scale from 1 to 10, 1 is poor, 10 absolutely amazing. How would you rate your current performance in your field? Right? And be very honest with yourself. Have your pen and paper there and make a note of how do you score yourself. If 10 is a true expert, the authority, people come to you. Right? People come to you in order to really solve their problems. Where are you right now? 1, absolutely no expert status. Nobody comes to you for anything. 10, in your organization is probably too small. I would say in your country, because in your organization, you might actually be the organizational expert. So if you wanted to split it up, please go ahead. In your organization, where are you in level of expertise? But then in the country, right? In our organization, we're ranked globally. right? The field that I have chosen, for example, coaching. We are ranked among 1,000 people like myself globally. And so we get ranked globally on the level of expertise that we bring to the table. I'm asking you, check for your organization, where do you rank? And if you have to rank in the country, where do you rank as an expert? Now, we have to make sure that we understand that it's not always about performance, right? Because why do people stop improving? Often, people find a place in their organization where their performance is good, acceptable, or even great. They then practice the same performance aspect every day. Every single day, they repeat, rinse and repeat. But this thinking can cause a person to actually plateau and stop growing if what you do is the same day after day. To obtain expert status, there has to be a deliberate effort to grow, evolve, and learn, as by only focusing your efforts on the performance, the day-to-day performance might make you great at what you do. It could even make you flawless in your personal performance. But unless you are motivated to continue learning, you will never gain the authority over your field, because every field continues to advance, every field continues to develop. Make a note again, what are your thoughts on how to learn more about something you're already great at? Right, so for all of you, I heard from quite a few of you this morning already. How are you learning more about the field, the subject that you want to get really great at? What are you currently putting in place? Right? Remember, it's all about first reflecting on where you are so that you can take in what I have to share with you. Now, deliberate practice breaks the mold of repetition when learning. Taking a deliberate aim at your goals means thinking outside of the box, doing whatever it takes to keep your motivation high, being consistent, persistent, and tracking your progress. Power of motivation. Remember, you have, and I'm going to ask you just take a second again, write down the field or the subject that you would like to be an expert in. If you have 2 or 3 that you're thinking of, write them out and then put them in order of priority. And remember my story, I had to choose between engineering and business. And I explained to you why I ended up choosing business. I do not consider myself an expert at engineering. I'm great at it. I can make do with the skills I have, but I'm not the expert there. I've chosen to become an expert in business. What are you choosing for yourself? What are you choosing for yourself? Because if you are motivated to always be improving yourself, you'll need 3 things, right? And please make a note of the 3 things. And I'll go more in depth on each one of them. But the first thing you need is a growth mindset, right? A growth mindset. And that is a firm belief that you can actually improve. That's the first question I ask anybody coming to me. Do you think there's any room for improvement? If there is not, no need to see me. Right? Don't waste my time, don't waste your time. Step number 1, must have a growth mindset. Step number 2, you must have a desire to improve. There must be a desire to improve. Yes, I know I can improve, but then do I really have the desire to improve? Right? Which means that you must have a deep understanding of your purpose and motivation. Right? And everybody's purpose and motivation differs. This is very specific to you. And then thirdly, once you have a growth mindset, once you have a desire to improve, is a map for how to improve. Right? A map for how to improve. And this is basically a strategy for how you plan to actually make your improvements. Right? So make sure that you have written those down. I'm going to go into each one of them in a little bit more detail. So let's deal with the growth mindset. Any expert approaches their work with a growth mindset. They know that there are things out there that they do not know. Right? Every expert right? Knows that there are things that they do not know. It allows them to remain open-minded. It is why you have to be very careful as well when you listen to people and they have no room for correction. There is no room for improvement because they know it all. And it makes for a very closed-minded scenario because, 7.5 billion, there might be something new happening out there that you don't know of as yet. So they are able to think outside of the box and they seek knowledge that supports their overall focus. If we take a simple example, let's say, you're a yoga instructor, right? The yoga instructor gets better by maybe learning these Sanskrit names. Yes, you have a lot of yoga poses being practiced, but do you know the origin? Do you know the origin of the name? Do you know what the name actually means? Or another yoga instructor might actually say, well, I want to actually do biology because I want to be better familiarized with the human body. Right? Or they might decide, okay, I want to get deeper into the meditation side of things because I want to understand the impact of yoga on the mind. You see, when an expert takes this type of holistic approach, such a person will have a much better grasp on their field than someone who has only earned a teaching certificate and simply put what they learned into play. Right? And we have a lot of that going on in our society and across the world. Right? Somebody went to a yoga class for a month and suddenly they become the yoga expert. Right? Have they done, and it doesn't mean that they can't, but have they done the needed work? Have they gone in depth? Do they understand why things work the way they do in that specific field? Right? So you can understand that you have to foster that belief of always becoming better. And it's about curiosity, right? And always seeing the need for improvement. You cannot really learn if you're not curious what is outside there. So think about it for yourself. What are some of the unique ways you can grow by thinking outside of the box? Think about what you do day to day and what are some of the things that you can start pursuing in your own field to really start understanding what your field is all about. And for everyone who's on the call, I'm going to strongly encourage you to stay on once I've completed, and I may be able to help you individually as well with any questions that you have on how to develop your own expert status. Now, we're often required to hit the ground running in our work environments. And it is usually only your performance that is measured, not your learning. Right? Think about it, the way your organizations measure you, they measure the output, right? They measure the output. They don't really measure, and sometimes I believe they don't even care if you're in the process of getting better, if you're actually learning something. So in other words, all of the work that we produce is considered high stakes, so there's no room to play around with the idea or to take time to figure out the best and most unique way to accomplish a goal. Right? Everybody just wants their KPIs and they want a specific thing to be done. And no time is actually budgeted for you to learn, for you to play around with new ideas, for you to test different things, to get to develop yourself. Right? So to balance performance and to learn in that type of environment, you must perform as required, but you must always be, you're always learning from your experience. What you want to do is to be able to reflect on how you perform, accept feedback if you get feedback from those around you, learn from your mistakes, and improve your strategy. Always remember, an expert takes every opportunity to learn and improve. It becomes part of their everyday routine. This is not like when you went to school and, okay, I am between this time and this time I'm learning. Experts learn constantly. They learn from every interaction. And they're always looking for ways in which they can improve. They're very committed about that. They understand that there are no quick routes to becoming an expert. So your path should be paved with determination to succeed and the self-awareness to see your own weaknesses, and the desire to put in the effort to excel every day. The way I think about it, I had two guys in Borbies who were particularly on my case all the time. You could call them critics, and some very tough critics at it as well. To the extent that, they became very demotivating. And when my mentor sat me down, my mentor told me, how much do you pay me every session? We confirmed. And sometimes I would bring up the things that, my critics were pointing out, and we would work through it, and I would come out better. And my mentor asked me, if you had to pay a consultant to study you every single day of the week, every single week of the month, and on a regular basis, this consultant would provide you with the exact areas where they believe that there were weaknesses. And how much would you have to pay that consultant? I said, probably more than you, because I only meet you an hour every other week. So I said, there has to be more than you. And he said, well, that's what these guys are doing for you. These guys are taking hours out of their day to study you and figure out all kinds of things that they think are wrong about you, and they're providing it to you. I recommend, and they do it at absolutely no cost to you. And so I recommend that the next time you see them, you give them a hug. Right? And that really changed my mind, and it really allowed me to appreciate my critics. My critics have made me really, really sharp and really, really strong where I am today. Today, on a day like today, I actually have to pay people to be very critical of me in order to find room for improvement. So I hope that you get the lesson in there, that whoever you think is your critic right now, if they're not invoicing you, you might as well, buy a mala or something and hang over the neck every time you see them, or buy them, buy them something to drink or something. Right? Nothing worthwhile comes for free, nor should it, right? Because if it is for free, people don't value it. People don't value it. Now, how to improve is as essential to the learning process as what you plan to improve in. A good place to start is with an assessment of your industry as it relates to your goal. Right? So take a look at your industry and figure out, can you achieve expert status in your specific industry? You can do 80-20 analysis by determining what 20% you need to learn and practice to get the 80% of the results you are looking for. And let me give you a simple example. One of the issues, one of the challenges for high performers, like all of you who are on the call here right now, I see the names, and I'm very familiar with these names, and I know how you guys are already striving to be expert performers. One of the challenges with an expert performer is that you're good in so many fields. Right? When you see somebody who is okay at it or is good at it, because you're a high performer, highly intelligent, really has that drive, it is easy for you to be better than someone who is, good at that level. Maybe that's the only thing they're good at. And so many of us get stuck at doing the thing that we're also good at. It's like for me, engineering, I'm a good engineer, if I do say so myself. I have projects to back it up. But that, there are better engineers out there. And I could actually remain stuck being a good engineer for the rest of my life, instead of really moving on to a field where I can be the expert in that field. Some of you might be the accountant, and you might also be doing some amount of HR work, right? You will now have to look at that, okay, this industry, I have the accounting industry, I have the HR industry. Which one of them do I need to really focus on that 20% of skill that will really get me this 80% of my results? So in my case, it's coaching. I put a lot of energy into the skill of coaching because that alone gives me 80% of my results. So I drop a lot of the other things that don't give me that reward. However, when I say I drop them, I usually delegate. I train somebody else for whom that might be the best thing that they might be able to do. I train them and I then delegate it to them so that they are able to operate at their highest level and I can move on to operating at my highest level. When you have this knowledge, you have to apply it, which means you have to take the learning outside of the books or the videos or the online platform or your mentor. You have to take the learning out of that and actually apply it. Nobody wants a book expert, right? Nobody wants to hear you say, well, you know, I read once in a book that you should do this. People want to hear from their expert that they have taken this principle and they've applied this principle and they have received certain benefits and positive outcomes from that application. What you must also do is to switch it up. Take a task or routine and change how you approach it or do it slightly differently. Right? Take something that you're doing on a day-to-day basis, right? Some tasks that you're doing, take the knowledge from the book, from wherever you got it, your mentor, your coach, and apply a new way of doing the thing that you're doing currently. And then also quiz yourself. Right? Track your progress by measuring your learning tactics. Every so often we do a session on the learning styles because we all learn differently. Some of us learn by seeing, some of us learn by hearing, some of us learn by doing, some of us learn by reading. You have to know what it is for you so that you feed yourself in the right way. And that's a very, very good point. Organization measure our performance and not our learning. Right? And again, if you are leading an organization, this would be a key thing for you to start looking at. Are you actually measuring your learning? In our organization, Monday is set aside for learning. From morning till afternoon, on Mondays we learn. Tuesdays to Fridays, it's actually Tuesdays to Thursdays we apply, and then Friday we wrap up the week. Monday we learn again. And it's one of the reasons why the organizations, my organization, the organizations we're involved in, continue to develop, continue to innovate, because we schedule time for our learning and our development. Stephen Covey calls it sharpening your saw. If you continuously have this axe and you never sharpen it, you're going to be hitting that tree for a long time before it falls down. Compared to someone who, on a regular basis, sharpens their axe, so when they have a tree to cut down, it takes them a fraction of the time of the person who never takes a moment to sharpen their axe. Now, authority and credibility is something that is cultivated. It cannot be purchased. This is why I love the field that I've chosen. It cannot be purchased. Right? I mentioned to you one of the businesses I did was a distribution business, which is trading, really, right? The fortunate or unfortunate thing with trading, with buying and selling, is that anybody with money can do it. Anybody with money can buy and sell. They don't even know how, if they bought it for 100, they can sell for 105 and they're in business. Suddenly they're in business. Now, and especially in a country like Guyana, where some of the sources of funds are still questionable, some people you might be doing a fantastic business selling cars, selling ketchup, selling chicken, whatever you're selling, and you're doing your best to sell, be very efficient and all of that. And somebody else maybe just needs to pass their money through a business, and they don't care if they lose some money running the business, but they can say that they're getting their money out of the business, can compete with you, right? And can cause you to fail. And that is the type of business that could be purchased. That's money only. What I love with developing expert status is that yes, it does take time, but it cannot be bought. Right? So whatever field you choose to focus your time and energy on should be something you are entirely passionate about, because real experience takes time. Experience is the best teacher. So in order to achieve expert status, you must be dedicated and prepared to be in it for the long haul. question to you is, and the question for you to write down is, are you prepared to give your subject your all? Are you prepared to give your subject your all? And, you know, sometimes, you know, when I hear my current critics, the people who criticize me currently, sometimes I hear the one, you know, he's lucky guy, or where did he come from? Right? I hear those two a lot. And, you know, I sometimes have to laugh and think, you know, it took me 20 years to become an overnight success. It took me 20 years to become an overnight success. So please don't expect this thing to happen in the short term. If you go really hard at it, you might be able to shorten that, I would say maybe anywhere between 3 to 10 years. And we're going to talk a little bit about the time commitment that is required. Now, every single field continues to change and grow over time, but it is important to stay at the forefront of the industry and to stay on top of the trends and the innovation. Experts always look at trends to stay abreast of the direction of their industry, including new technologies and innovations. While others may actually run against the grain of change, you know, one of the things I love to do is to test the opposite. If everybody's heading in this direction, what is the opposite direction? But experts always absorb the information and start making projections based on what change means for success. When things are changing, and you know, the COVID situation, the election situation, the oil situation, are all fantastic opportunities for us as experts to start thinking, what will these changes mean to future success? A good source, and I did ask you, what are some sources? A good source are professional publications, right? Like journals, and they're journals for engineering, they're journals for business, they're journals for cooking. Almost every subject in the world has thousands of journals that accompany it. And what the journal basically is all the latest research that is being conducted, and it is peer reviewed. So other experts have taken a look at it. And then it is then published for consumption by, you know, anyone who likes to consume it. I would encourage you to find the journals that are most related to your field. Get the subscription. Quite a lot of them are free as well. So that I do it on a monthly basis. I look at, okay, what's the latest? You know, I'm particularly interested in intrapreneurship, right? Which is innovative behavior, entrepreneurial behavior by employees within large organizations. Right? Because I know there's a lot of talk between small business and big business. I do believe that big business has a significantly higher opportunity to generate large number of jobs, taxation, and massive improvements. It has a much bigger chance than smaller businesses. It doesn't mean that smaller businesses are not important, but if we could get our big businesses to function the way they ideally could, our big businesses really hold the key to unlocking a lot of economic development in this country and countries around the world. So professional publications are fantastic because they also point you towards the trend in the world. And one of the advantages for those of you looking at this particular presentation in Guyana, one of the huge advantages of being in a country like Guyana is that we are usually behind the curve. When something has already happened in China or in Europe or in the US, it hits us days after, weeks after, months after, in some cases even years after. So an expert in Guyana may not be at the level of a global expert, but for Guyana, they might be able to see way ahead. You know, my encouragement for you is, as you become an expert in Guyana, take it to the next level, Caribbean, and then from the next level, start maybe doing the Americas and then globally. Because one of the key things we need to understand as well is that there is nothing wrong with us as Guyanese when it comes to personally or mentally, right? We all have bodies just like every other human being in the world. We all have minds. We do come from an era where this country was a colony and the mindset that kept us a colony was that we were somehow inferior to our colonizers. And unfortunately, some of that still resides with us, and we have to break through that mindset. There's absolutely nothing wrong, nothing different from you and someone else except your mindset. If you get past your mindset, the world is your paradise. The world is your oyster. The world, you can do anything you want in the world. Now, another really, really good way of staying on top of emerging industry information is to get to know the names of the standout people in your field. Who are the experts in your field? Get to know them, connect with them. LinkedIn is the best place to find them, get their books, get their publications, go to events that they go to. You know, I do that 2-3 times a year. It's probably the biggest thing that bothers me about the whole Corona lockdown is I've already missed 2 conferences. Because at these conferences, not only do I get to share my ideas, I also get to receive ideas from the best in the world. Fortunately, the conferences have gone online. So, for example, this Friday we have a whole day conference. But you know, there's something about being in the same room with the same people that I do miss. Your own professional network is another great resource for sharing notes and discussing new trends and technologies in your field. Your own professional network. And always think about it, if you are the smartest one in your network, you're probably not in the right network. Doesn't mean you have to leave that network. You may be the expert for that network, but please join some groups, join some networks where you're not the smartest. You might be far from the smartest, because those networks will allow you to grow much faster. And when you grow much faster, you can go back to your old network and lift them up even faster as well. You can follow a lot of professionals on their blogs and forums. So a question to you is, what blogs, what forums, what networks do you belong to currently? And what are some of the ones in your field that you really need to start getting active in? You know, do you know that being a good listener means approaching communications with an open mind, and not just an open mind, an open heart? It turns out that listening to other like-minded people speak of their interests and skills is a great way to get inspired. And it's also an opportunity to drop your ego and to be open to new ideas. And when you listen to experts, when you listen to people who are at the top of your field, it builds trust, right? It connects you to those people, and it is a true opportunity to learn. And you know, our egos are sometimes the biggest thing that hold us back. One of my mentors made it, you know, back in the days when I had an ego that was much bigger than my actual capacity. Because we all have egos, right? But sometimes our egos are multiple times larger than our expert level, our competence level, or even our level as a human being. And my mentor said, Vishnu, you have to make sure that you are not in a race of edging God out. Ego, edging God out. Because people with egos that are out of proportion, they seem to want to be in a race with God. They want to edge God out. So please don't have your ego get you to that space. As you progress on this journey, never let your expert status go to your head. Don't let it, you know, inflate your ego, because it could really have dire consequences. As you start to gain traction in your field, it will be very easy for you to be the one that's always speaking, but it's important that you also get feedback from your peers and from other experts. Right? Always remember, you don't know everything. Constructive feedback, or as I said earlier, constructive criticism, keeps the motivation fire burning. It makes you want to reach for higher, perform better, learn more. And there it is again. It just pushes you to improve. Now this one here is an easy one. You can't expect me not to share this one with you. I am where I am today because of my mentors, because of my coaches. And the very best way for you to get good feedback is to actually find a mentor. If you can find people that you admire, who inspire you, and that you trust to give you honest feedback, please cherish those connections. Honest feedback. Honest feedback is not always the feedback you want to hear, but is the feedback you need to hear. At no point is someone too experienced or too successful for a mentor, as no two people know exactly the same things. They each have something to offer the other in terms of knowledge, passion, and tips. So find a person in your field that has achieved what you hope to, and try to establish a conversation to get the creative juices flowing. I do see, something playing out in our society where there are people who want to move ahead, but instead of them seeking a mentor, they seek sympathy by people who are exactly at the same level like them. Right? I hope that makes sense to you. Instead of them seeking out someone who's ahead of them, and there are all kind of reasons for why they don't do that, right? All kind of psychological reasons, all kind of imposter syndrome reason. Am I really worth it? And then they seek out people at the same level as them, facing the same exact issues like them. And then they start colluding. Because when this portion complains, this portion, the only thing this portion can say, well, it's the same thing happens to me, right? And it's like victim mentality, and you just grow victimhood. You enter victimhood there. So it does take a little bit of courage, but whatever that courage is, find the person, reach out, and I can guarantee you that mentors, successful mentors, ethical mentors would be really happy to share their knowledge with you. Good mentors believe in abundance. They believe that there's enough for everyone, right? And they understand that the more they share, the more they themselves grow as well. Because if I can't teach it, do I really know it? The flip side of all of this is for you to become a mentor yourself, right? Having the opportunity to share not only your knowledge, but your path to obtaining it is a gift. Right? This is basically what I'm doing here today. Everyone here is invited, and I'm doing this as a gift to you, right? So that you can make use of my path, and you can also, it also gives me the opportunity to give back, and it allows you to take people on that journey as well, because life is a journey. A lot of times people talk about the destination, but what happens when you get to the destination? Is life over? Why don't you learn how to enjoy the journey as well? Right? So mentorship is a relationship where both the mentor and the mentee actually gain experience. It's never a one-way road. So even when you are sitting with your mentor, like I was yesterday, last night, we had our session on behavioral sciences with 3 of my mentors. And as I'm learning from them, I said, guys, why don't we have a discussion on this for everybody else out there to hear what is really going on with our minds? And, I'm sure some of them are going to see this. I am more of an expert at technology than they are. And then I realized the thing that held them back was not being too familiar with the technology. So then I said, okay, great. I'll walk you guys through the technology. I'll train you. I'll mentor you on how it works. And let's do this. And next Monday at 6 o'clock, if you have the time, I would really encourage you to attend. 3 of my mentors. One is from New Zealand, Bruce. We have Laurie from Australia, and Nagy from Canada. Really, really fantastic guys. I've learned a lot from them. I think we'll hear next week, but I think they're also learning a lot from me. But it's never a one-way road. So if you get a chance next Monday at 6, it's a fantastic session. And remember, being a cheerleader for someone who's coming up in the field is a fantastic way to keep your motivation fire burning. I can't even explain to you. I do this for about 15 people on a regular basis. and seeing their growth, how I help them, and seeing their growth is just so much energy and so much positive energy into my life. And every so often, from time to time, you know, that honor that you feel when they mention your name, that, you know, thanks to Vishnu, it's not that you're expecting it, because, you know, this is my profession. You know, if I was a dentist, I don't expect everyone that I work on to go say, oh, wait, Vishnu did my teeth. But every so often, when somebody says, you know, I truly appreciate what you have done, it really feels good to your spirit, to your heart, to your soul. Now, taking pride in what you have accomplished can inspire others, and it can also benefit others. One of the ways to do this is to create content about your topic. Right? So if you are really on the path to becoming an expert, one of the key things you'd want to start doing is creating content. One of the things I'm doing here today with you is from my notes that I've been working on, from my team, everything that we've put together. Me delivering it to you is creating content in the truest form, right? Because once I have this, it's a recording. I can use my content for different purposes. I may not be able to sit and go with someone else through this entire 1.5 hours again, but I can always say, here, go to this video, pay keen attention, and from the lessons you get from this video, start putting things in action. Right? But I can only do that because I've created the content. You can do it as articles, you can submit it for publication, you can do it as blog posts, newsletters, podcasts, videos. I do a live tip on Facebook almost daily. I share knowledge that I think is really useful on a regular basis, food for thought. So all of those are ways in which content is created. What you do want to do is create quality informational content. And it's more of an art, right? It takes time, it takes practice. But if you aim to become an expert at something, you should start doing this professionally. Keep improving the level of professionalism on this. And consider writing articles for publications in your area. You know, we publish the Who's Who as well, and quite a lot of the pieces were done from my background, right, my expertise. And it allows me to test my knowledge level. It allows me to do more research in order to put out a really good piece of content. So question for you, please make a note of this question. What are some of the things that you can do today or write today that will help you become an authority in your topic? Right? So if you're in accounting, what content could you create that people will find and say, oh, yeah, this is an expert in the field, I need to talk to this expert. Right? If you're in the food business, what kind of content can you create? If you're in the lumber industry, what kind of content could you create? If you're in the education field, furniture field, office supplies field, whatever field you're in, what kind of content can you create that will make people understand, oh, wait, this portion here is someone that I need to be able to follow. Now, as I mentioned to you, mindset, achieving expert status has everything to do with the mindset that you carry into this endeavor. Having the confidence and yet the humility to place yourself at the top, to set your sight ahead, and you do not waver. You're in it for the long haul, and you need to really enjoy the ride. Very importantly, you have to be open, optimistic, and inspired. And I would usually recommend, you know, I found my path I was probably 27 or 28. So I've been able to put more than 10 years of really focused energy into becoming an expert. There are different age ranges on the call. Wherever you are, if you have discovered what you want to become an expert at, what you want to do for the rest of your life, you need to be able to commit the time. From my experience, I've always invested anywhere between 2 to 4 hours per day in order to get to that level, and that continues. Up to today, it's 2 to 4 hours per day. Right? Mondays, it's nearly 10 hours. It is very unlikely that you'll be able to get to an expert level with, you know, infrequent and unscheduled and undedicated time towards this. At the bare minimum, I do have some colleagues that plug in about an hour per day. and we can see the difference, right? We can see the difference. The key thing at expert level is that you are developing your ability to take in this information and put it in such a form that it's practical, that it could be utilized, because that's what people want, right? People want to be able to have solutions that they can apply. Right? So if you are on this path, make sure that you understand the time commitment that this takes, and to also understand that you will have to drop some things. Please don't make the mistake of dropping your family, right? Because I see too many people complaining about not having good family relationships. However, who said that to be an expert, you have to not have a good family life? If you have activities that you would like to do with your family, put that as high priority. Have dinner, go out, do the things that need to be done. But it means that, let's say if you're in the office up to 5, if you can do this during your working time, fantastic. My path that I've chosen allows me to do this during my working time, because this is what I do full time. If you're not in that situation, you have to block out an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours per day. But it doesn't mean that, after 5, if you were to have dinner at 6, for example, that you skip dinner and you blame it on your path to becoming an expert. Go have dinner, sit with your kids, talk them in if you need to, and then go invest the time in becoming an expert. I wouldn't advise you to use this, because then you'll end up with a lot of resentment, and your family will also resent you. So please make sure, but there are going to be certain things, maybe gardening might not be the thing for you. Maybe you're not even a good gardener, but you continue to try to do that. Get somebody else to do it so that you can focus. So there will be some other things, maybe some other hobbies, maybe some other tasks, some other things that occupy your mind that you will have to put on the back burner, or decide to remove it. Like engineering, I do not put what I had, my qualifications that I had. Every so often, my brother is in the process of being a doctor in engineering as well. Some of the fancy civil engineering, if he's on, he's gonna probably tell me, Vish, how don't you remember it? It's soil hydraulics, fancy long name type of engineering, becoming a doctor. My uncle is a doctor in engineering as well, in civil engineering. And they have chosen to remain at the top of that field. That's their field. I haven't. I've said, no, I'm not gonna put any brain power towards engineering. I'm okay with what I have. I want to go in this field. I'm asking you to think as well similarly. What are some of the things that you just have to park and say, okay, where I am with this is fine. I will go into this particular direction. So I hope that helps. And I want you to start putting down any questions that you may have as well. Because with this knowledge, it's basically time for you to take off, right? And I'm hoping that the tools and the guidance and the mindset that I would have provided with you really helps. There's a lot of research that went along with this particular presentation, about 20 pieces of research. If you are interested in really understanding more of the entire path to becoming an expert, I'm going to type this in here quickly. But all you need to do is send an email to info@actioninvest.org. Right? If you send an email to info@actioninvest.org, we will send you the research material, right? That was used to generate this particular presentation. So I'd really want to, if this is something that you feel strongly about, some of you say, okay, Vishnu, you have this thing today, let me see what it's all about. Some of you are saying, no, Vish, this looks like too much headache, I don't want to do this. Some of you are saying, well, Vishnu, this is exactly what I needed to hear. I want to learn more. So if you belong to that category, send an email there, and we'll share with you all the information that we used to put this together, right? So that you'll have all that further reading that you could be able to do. And you'll see it's stuff from LinkedIn, it's stuff from publications, from books, Six Sigma. So quite a lot of really up-to-date type of content, because the field that I'm in continues to evolve really rapidly. Now, I would like to thank all of you for really attending this particular event here today. And I also want you to share this, right? So when we do post this up, share it with anyone that you really believe wants to develop themselves. And even if you don't get the expert level with what I shared with you today, you'll be in a good position to really step up your game, right? I did make a post this morning that Guyana will only get better when we as Guyanese get better, right? I even mentioned as well that our leaders are a reflection of the population. They didn't come from another planet. You know, we selected them, we put them there. So if we want better there, we actually first have to get better, or else we'll keep making the same choices. So I strongly encourage you to get better first. Don't be the one who's yelling and screaming. If you have to yell and scream, of course, when it's totally going sideways, fantastic. But don't look at someone and yell and scream at them if you don't have a better option. If you have better options, be the expert. Step up your game. I'm gonna ask as well for those of you. I'm gonna ask if you have any questions that came through on Facebook as well. I'm gonna see if I can pull those up. So I'm gonna ask any questions in the Zoom room, and I'm also gonna take a look at what's happening on Facebook. Right, so I'm seeing quite a lot of feedback on Facebook as well, dedicated a lot of time to learning for a particular field. 10,000 hours to actually get really, really good at something. People getting quite a lot of value out of this. So the fantastic thing on Facebook is that we're able to get the comments in as well. And I'm also going to ask you to share your takeaways. What's the biggest lesson? And please, if there's a final lesson I can give you, is always make sure that you go through a session, but capture what are your 1 or 2 biggest lessons from that session. And I would encourage you to write it down, because the act of writing does something really fantastic in your brain. It saves it for the long term. So please type in as well your biggest takeaway from this session. And anyone who's on the call as well, you can feel free to unmute yourself. You can either type in your question, or you can unmute yourself and ask me a question here as well. We'll be able to do that. So Ayana says, thank you, Vishnu. My 2 takeaways are schedule time for learning, and not simply focus on performance, but also practice. And keep asking, is there anything I would rather be doing as a way to improve? That's a key life question, right? Because I'm sometimes worried about something else coming in my mind and saying yes. But, it takes a while for you to discover what your true path is, what your true purpose is. And for me, I haven't come across any other field that gives me as much joy and satisfaction, and where I can really help people with something that I'm really good at. In the future, I might want to do this on a much broader scale. But again, it takes preparation, right? It's not just like that and say, okay, wait, let me do it, prepare. Beverly is saying, always strive to be better. I'm just gonna, whilst any other questions, and if anyone wants to ask a question as well, you can put up your hand and I can unmute you, or I think I've given everybody the ability to unmute themselves as well. I'd love for you to be able to share what you took away from today, and feel free to unmute yourself. Take a look. So Adrian is mentioning, the growth mindset, the desire to improve, and how to keep things improving. Very good. Camille mentioned schedule at least 2 to 4 hours per day for learning and self-development. Right, and this is where we're talking about expert level, right? So if you're doing a job right now that is an 8-hour job, as an expert, your job is to be an expert. Right? So the 8 hours, if you wanted to, that's why some of my days, it's a full 8 hours I'm focused on becoming better. because that's my job. There's a nice story of a warehouse where they were doing some manufacturing in there as well. And everything was automated. I think this is from the Ford Motor Company. It was a story like that where everything was automated. And one day, the entire production line started to go haywire, and they had to run to that big panel with a big lever, and they had to turn off everything. And the manager called, consultant to come in, engineering consultant to come in. And the engineering consultant went over to the panel, opened the panel, took a look, pulled out a screwdriver, turned one of the screws about a quarter turn, and then restarted, and the entire production line started running again. Now the manager was so happy that the production was up and going again. So he said, "Fantastic, can you please give me your invoice so I can arrange payment for you?" So the engineering consultant said, "Okay, that's 10,000 US." The manager, rocked back for a second and said, "Oh, how's that possible? You're here for less than 5 minutes, and all I saw is you just turned the screw. How could that possibly be 10,000? Can you please give me an itemized invoice for how you ended up coming up to 10,000?" So the engineer pulled out a piece of paper. He wrote invoice. He put turning one screw, $1. 25 years of learning which screw to turn, $9,999. Total, 10,000. He handed it to the manager. The manager took one look at it and went and paid the portion. So it takes quite a bit of time for you to develop expert level, but for the people who really have the problems that need to be solved, when you come to solve it, some of them will be difficult like that manager, but some people really understand that. Do they want to take a lifetime? Do they want to study 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 hours and go test it out? Or do they want to come to an expert for an expert to advise them? That is the value in being an expert. Quite a lot of feedback coming in. Beverly, it took me 20 years. How can a person over 50 set the timeline and timetable? So if you're over 50, retirement might be one of the things. And I would say be careful with retirement, because I think 50 now is like when people were 40, 20 years ago. So people are much healthier, fitter. Their brains are still sharper, I believe, than a while ago. So start working out. Do you plan to retire if you are working? If you do plan to retire, what would you like to do after retirement? If you are already in your own type of business, or you're already heading to a field that you really want to become the expert at, I would start with an hour per day. First of all, what specific area do you want to specialize in? And then start with the broad areas. Get a book on it, a textbook on the subject. I always prefer start broad so that you understand the framework of the subject, and then you start picking. And so I was very broad in strategic management, and then I got narrow into entrepreneurship, and now I've gotten very, very narrow into intrapreneurship. Right? And when I take a look at the textbook, let's say the textbook is 400 pages, the subject of intrapreneurship was just about 20 pages out of that 400. And then the deeper I go into it, that's when I now see how that whole field opens up. So that would be my guidance there. And then pick a time, right? If you are 50, it might mean as well that most of your kids are adults now. It might give you more time for yourself. If you wake up very early, maybe you need to take an hour or 2 hours in the morning. If you're more of a late afternoon, evening person, 1 or 2 hours in the evening. We do courses as well on how to learn, right? How to read faster, how to memorize things much longer. So reach out if you need assistance on that. Candice says, great session, Vishnu. The session reinforces the path that I'm on. I'm continuously working on improving my knowledge in my field. Learning never stops. Keep reaching. Action point, identify a personal mentor. And let me tell you, Maybe when you start, if you never had a mentor before, an official mentor, you start with one. The better you get, the more mentors you will need, right? I have about 6 mentors for different areas of my life. And it's like an athlete, right? When you were in high school, we had one coach for 30 people, right? One trainer for 30 people. When you get to Usain Bolt level, there is a coach and mentor for fitness. There's one for nutrition. There is one for stretching. There is one for personal finances, right? So the better you get, the more mentors, the more coaches you have access to. Stacy says, thank you for sharing, Vishnu. My biggest takeaway is having a growth mindset. It's easy to forget that it's easy to forget that going through an everyday routine. Having a growth mindset helps you to take action for improvement and moving further. Kandel, being great does not make you an expert. You must have a growth mindset. Schedule your learnings in the areas you want to become an expert. Very, very important. Because today, if you think about it again, we have a lot of people who are talking, but they were experts 10, 20, 30, 40 years ago. When I listen to them and I analyze to what they say, I can see that they haven't learned much of how the world has evolved over the past 5, 10, 20, 30 years. Right? So they were great back then. They're not doing what is required to keep up. Rodlin, only you can unlock or unleash your potential to become an expert. The mindset and the will to be the best and plan to get there and to follow the same. Teresa, do you know of someone who is considered an expert in an area, but that person is not happy? As in, it might not be their purpose, but they're good at it. Does there need to be an alignment? Yeah, so I think that definitely, if you really want to experience joy and happiness, that there needs to be an alignment between what you choose to invest your life in and the purpose of why you're doing it. Right? Because I know quite a few people who are good at certain things, maybe even expert level. I hardly see. Yeah, that's a good question. Maybe at the university level, I see some experts. They're really sharp on the thing on that specific field, but I sometimes find like they don't like doing what they're doing. There's some experts as well in some of our organizations. Some of our public sector organizations in Ghana actually have some of the most brilliant experts. And they became experts because they were in that field. They kept going to conferences. They kept getting guidance. But sometimes I feel like they really don't like that spot. Maybe they will develop to become consultants in the future. But it is important, you know, one of the key things that I would advise someone like that to do is come and sit with a professional, with a coach, with a mentor. Remember what I told you, right? Coaching is about helping people make better, faster decisions. We prefer to work with business people. Our preference is to work with business people, you know, companies, medium to large companies is our preference because we can grow them much faster. We can grow the individuals faster. We can help them structure and grow the company faster, get them more time. That's our preference. However, you know, if a one-off session is needed with someone, we can arrange that where we can just help you with clarity and with direction. So that is a possibility. You can use the same email. There's so many comments coming in. Make your family a priority as you grow and evolve. Take them along on the journey. That's a fantastic one, right? If you are in a family type of business, or you just, you know, you have family at home, please share this information with them so that they get this at an early stage as well. Nigel is saying learning and development is continuous. Adrian is saying make sure that you get a good mentor to keep you on track. And yeah, that you love the session. So, you know, I absolutely love bringing this to you. Yeah, Teresa even shared that she was 35 when you finally figured it out. My goal, and this is one of the things, I know that Camille is on the line, but one of the biggest things we keep hearing from the people we work with, the hundreds of people we've worked with, from a coaching perspective, thousands of employees by now, is the biggest thing they always tell us, I wish I had known about this earlier. Biggest thing we keep hearing. So one of the things that I'm very passionate about is education, and together with Camille's Academy, is we'll be moving into primary and secondary education. Because if kids were to learn these things, if kids were to learn soft skills, professional skills, collaboration skills at their age, think about how fantastic and joyful their life would be. So it's something that I'm very passionate about. I know Camille is very passionate about. We've been working together for nearly 2 years. We were actually MBA colleagues. What's that now? 8 years ago, 9 years ago. So I'm happy that we're now able to work on a project where we'll start bringing this into the curriculum. So yes, kids will continue to learn. They will continue to learn maths and English and science and all of that. But what we will add is all the skills that are missing today. You know, when we have employees coming into the workforce and it feels like we're starting from scratch, we want to create an institution that will teach kids these things at a much earlier age so that they can have happier, more fulfilled lives, more rounded lives, not just maths and English. And when we fail, it's the end of the world. And we are failing, you know, counting. We'll teach them to count properly. Camille, please make a note of that. Anybody coming through the institution definitely will know addition. Malaika, thanks for a great session. I got in late, but some great points. Sometimes in Guyana, the tendency is not to recognize locals as having the expertise level, and we look overseas. Another challenge I have experienced as an agricultural specialist in Guyana is the resistance to the adaptation of innovative ideas and technology. Malaika, I can only agree with you. When I was 22 years old, an engineer, and joining a chamber of commerce, and I came up with all these fantastic ideas at 22. And this is no offense, but you know, I brought it up. Some of the feedback I would get, you know, them thing can't walk here, them thing that from America, them thing for white people. I can tell you that these principles that I taught you today work everywhere in the world. And I can guarantee you they work even better in Guyana. And I have hundreds of companies to prove that. And organizations, they work even better in Guyana because so few people practice doing things in a better way, in a more innovative way. But you do need leadership to buy in. And maybe in the future, I'll do a session that is called Leading from the Middle, because you don't need to be the leader of an organization to move an organization in a better direction. Great. So thank you very much, guys. So many comments still coming in from both sides. It's really a pleasure. Today, I feel like it is an Independence Day truly well invested. Really happy to have all of you join me today. Please make sure that you mentor someone on what you learned today. And if you need any of our support, please reach out. Share this video as well. Remember, tomorrow we're doing a webinar at 7 on the organizational structure in a business. On Thursday, we're doing one with Global Compliance Service. And I believe that one is in the morning, 9 or 10. You can check on the pages. That is all about quality assurance for opening up public institutions like schools and like religious institutions. Let me check my memory here. Yeah, so that webinar is at 9 a.m. And then I'm sure we have one on Saturday, which is all about developing the sales skill. And I can tell you the selling skill is the best skill for any organization, because you can have fantastic products, but if you can't sell them, they'll rot. And then on Monday, which we're going to finalize tomorrow, Monday at 6 a.m., we have one on behavioral styles and the psychology of your mind, right? How to adapt. And I think the session, my colleagues actually want to call it adapt or die. I think I would have wanted to go with adapt or delay, right? Because that's what we do, right? When we don't adapt, we delay our progress. It's been fantastic. I'm going to go now. It's family time now. I'm going to go do some fun family stuff. And you guys have a fantastic day. Everybody on the live streams, thank you for joining us. And I see you soon. Thank you. Thanks everyone on Zoom. I really love you taking time out, especially on a holiday, to to be here to invest in yourself. Any support you need, I truly love what I do. My team loves what we do. I want to make sure that we continue to add value to you. So reach out anytime and keep looking out for sessions that we're doing like this, because we believe, I can't be an expert as well if you don't know what I'm capable of. So I have to make sure as well that I give you really good value that you can use. So if you really need us to help you with some of the bigger things, some of the smaller things, we'll be there to support you. Thank you very much and have a fantastic holiday. It's Independence Day. Free your thinking, right? Think for yourself, think like an expert, and have a fantastic rest of the day. Take care.